Welcome back. Tonight, we're stepping deep into one of the strangest and most unsettling cases of the 20th century. This isn't a folktale. It isn't mythology. It's a case documented in colonial records, witnessed by missionaries, and studied by doctors. It begins in the dusty plains of Uttar Pradesh, India, in the year 1921, a time when India was still under British rule. A time when villages were small, isolated, and stories often traveled faster than facts. The locals spoke of wolves, of children who vanished into the forest only to be seen years later, running on all fours beside the animals. Most dismissed it as rumor. But one particular case could not be ignored. The discovery? In the village of Midnapore, villagers had long whispered about a strange figure haunting the outskirts of the jungle. Hunters reported seeing what they thought was a wolf pack, only to notice that one of the creatures wasn't quite a wolf at all. On a hot summer evening, a small group of men followed the pack into the undergrowth. And that's when they saw him. A boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, naked, filthy, his hair matted with mud, his eyes gleaming unnaturally in the firelight. He moved on all fours, his knees and palms hardened from years of crawling. Around him, 2 adult wolves circled protectively, snarling at the intruders. The men froze. This wasn't just superstition, it was real, a capture. The villagers returned later, this time armed with nets and sticks. When they cornered the boy, he didn't cry, didn't shout for help, didn't even speak, he growled. He snapped at their hands like a feral animal, and when they tried to lift him, his body twisted with wild strength, his teeth sinking into one man's arm. Only after they beat back the wolves and forced the boy into a cart did they manage to drag him back to the village. Word spread quickly, until the case reached the ears of Reverend Joseph Singh, a missionary running an orphanage nearby. Singh had heard many legends about wolf children, but this was different. The villagers insisted he come. When Singh finally laid eyes on the boy, he wrote in his journal, "The child is utterly savage. No sign of shame, no understanding of human manner. His eyes shine in the dark. He tears at raw meat with his teeth. He will not allow clothing upon him. His howl chills the blood." Singh believed he had found a living case of a feral child. Life in the orphanage. The boy was brought to Singh's orphanage where several other abandoned children lived, but unlike the others, he didn't adjust. Refused cooked food, snarling until given raw meat. He drank water only by lowering his head directly into the bowl, lapping like a wolf. When night fell, he tried to escape, clawing at doors and windows, pacing in circles as though he belonged back under the moonlight. Most chilling of all was his howl. Random hours of the night, the boy would tilt his head back and unleash a long, piercing sound that echoed across the compound. And the wolves outside the orphanage walls would howl back. The other children grew terrified of him. Observations, doctors, and colonial officers came to see the wolf boy. They noted his thin frame, his sharp teeth, and his complete lack of speech. No words, no human sounds, only growls, yelps, and the occasional chilling howl. He walked on all fours, far more easily than he did upright. The bones in his wrists and ankles had adapted, bent slightly from years of running like an animal. When given clothes, he ripped them to shreds. When shown a bed, he ignored it, curling on the ground instead. One official report read, "The child is more wolf than human." His mind appears empty of language, of culture, of anything we may call civilization. He is a boy in body, but in spirit, a beast. At this point, Singh began to wonder, could the boy ever be brought back? Could he be taught to speak? To walk upright? To live among humans? Or had the jungle claimed him forever? And here's where the story darkens. Because what came next revealed the tragic truth of what it means to strip a child from the only life he has ever known. The struggle to adapt at first, Reverend Singh was optimistic. He wrote in his diary that the boy might, with time, learn speech, social behavior, and perhaps even one day live as other children did. But it quickly became clear that this was no ordinary orphan. Every attempt to introduce him to human life was met with resistance. When a teacher tried to place a pencil in his hand, the boy dropped it immediately and scratched the desk with his nails instead. When meals were served, he ignored the cooked food, waiting until the others were in tea, looking so he could steal scraps of raw meat from the kitchen. And always at dusk, he became restless. his body pacing, his nostrils flaring as though he could sense the wolves lingering beyond the compound walls. His name, the orphanage gave him a name? Kamala's brother, you see. Singh's orphanage had already taken in another famous wolf child, a girl named Kamala, who herself had been discovered 2 years earlier, in 1919, also running with wolves. She was slightly older, perhaps around 8 when found, and her case had already drawn the attention of missionaries and scientists. This boy, discovered in 1921, was believed to have lived with the same wolf pack. The villagers said they saw him beside Kamala during hunts, loping silently through the tall grass. But unlike Kamala, who was beginning to show faint signs of human learning, the boy resisted completely. The horrors of civilization, what unsettled the missionaries most, wasn't just his resistance, it was his fear. He was terrified of fire, flinched from lamps, from matches, even from sunlight reflected in glass. His senses were sharper than any human child's. He could smell food cooking before anyone else. And his hearing was so acute that he reacted to footsteps long before the others noticed, and yet civilization broke him down. He fell sick often, shivering with fevers, his body weak against diseases he had never been exposed to in the forest. When dressed in cloth, he clawed until his skin was raw. When confined to rooms, he banged his head against the walls, sometimes until he bled. Reverend Singh admitted in his journal, "We meant to save him. Instead, we are destroying him. His eyes are no longer wild, they are empty." The decline weeks turned into months. The boy never learned speech. He never learned to stand fully upright. He never laughed, never smiled, never displayed the simple joys other children found in play. Instead, he grew thin, withdrawn, silent, except for the occasional howl at night. Weaker each time, as though the wolves outside no longer recognized him. In 1922, less than a year after his capture, he fell gravely ill. Some said it was tuberculosis. Others said it was the stress of being torn from the only life he had ever known. Singh wrote, "He lies on the floor, refusing the bed, refusing food. His eyes no longer glimmer. I believe the jungle is calling him home." And then quietly, without ever speaking a word in human tongue, the boy died. He was believed to be no older than 10, the aftermath. The case shook the missionary community. Some saw it as proof of the beast-like nature of man without civilization. Others saw it as a tragedy. A child raised in one world ripped into another, where he could not survive. Kamala, the girl he once ran beside, lived a few more years in the orphanage, but she too never fully adapted. She managed to learn a handful of words, but by the age of 17, she died as well, her body weakened, her spirit broken. Reverend Singh published his findings in reports that reached Europe and America, sparking debates among psychologists and anthropologists. Was this a glimpse into the raw state of humanity? Proof of how environment shapes us? Or was it simply a tragic case of neglect? Children, abandoned in the wild, forced to live like animals until the wild itself claimed them. Legacy of the wolf boy today, historians look back on the case with skepticism. Some argue that Singh exaggerated or misunderstood what he saw. Others believe his records are authentic, one of the rare, chilling accounts of true feral children. But even with the doubts, the story remains haunting. A boy who never cried when cut, never flinched from pain, never spoke a single word. A boy who belonged neither to the human world nor fully to the animal one. A boy who died alone, in a bed he refused, in clothes he never wanted, far from the wolves who once called him brother. And that is the forgotten case of the Wolf Boy of India, 1921. A reminder that civilization isn't always salvation. Sometimes it's the very thing that kills. And as we close this chapter, the story lingers. The boy never asked to be found. He never asked to be saved. Perhaps the wolves gave him a truer family than humans ever could. Perhaps dragging him from the forest was the real cruelty. What do you think? Was he a victim of abandonment, or a rare glimpse into the wild edge of humanity? Was his death inevitable? Or could he have lived, if only they had left him where he belonged? History is filled with lives that slip through the cracks, leaving us with more questions than answers. The Wolf Boy of India remains one of them, forgotten by time, but remembered in stories like this. Warnings about the fragile line between civilization and wilderness. If this story left you thinking, if it made you wonder about what else is buried in history, then you're exactly where you should be. Because here we uncover the forgotten, the strange, the tragic, and there are so many more stories waiting to be told. So before you go, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Let me know in the comments. What other forgotten people of history do you want me to cover next? Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the most terrifying stories are the ones that really happened.